Kum Len and Ablan Kimora, Good Chaydish. Today is Masechta Chagigah Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. Where the last case we learned about was that all these different stringencies that we have when it comes to kachim as opposed to even truma. So the last thing we learned was about having a shoe, a tumblic shoe in one hand, and then holding onto a barrel with your other hand. If the barrel is open, we're scared because of a certain incident that happened that the shoelace tore and he put it placed on top of the barrel. Even though the barrel does not become tummy, an earthen barrel from the outside, it becomes tummy from internally, if even in the airspace. And what happened was that the shoelace fell in. Okay. So the Gemara says that have a few questions. So the Gemara, Iboy just about 20 lines from the top of the page, Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. Iboy have a question. Sandal tummy. The Mishnah is talking about a tamadika shoe in one hand, and you're holding the barrel with the other. What about sandal Torah? Do we go even a step further and say, even if you're holding an ordinary shoe, we're scared that next time you will hold a tamadika shoe, and then we're scared that the shoelace will break off. So we just started the Gemara about 20 lines from the top of the page. So we're just asking a few questions about the sandal. How far do we take the Gzera? The Mishnah is talking about a Talmudic sandal. What happens if you have a Torah sandal? Are we going to include that in the Gzera? Question number 2. The Mishnah is talking about Chaviv Sucha. The barrel is open, so therefore, because of that story, the shoelace fell and it broke, and you put it on top of the barrel. What about Chaviv Stunam? What about this? If the barrel was sealed, what would it then be? Then we also go a step further and say, look, next time we're geyser, next time will be an open barrel, and so on. How many steps do we go? What happens of Vanasa? We told him not to have a Talmudic sandal in your hand while you're holding over there the barrel. But what happens if what do you call it? You did it, but the shoelace never tore, so nothing happened. Nothing went awry. Can you use that wine? It doesn't matter. You defy the Chacham, you breach their words, and therefore it becomes tamei. And the Rabzei Amar of Vanasa tar. That if you did it and nothing happened wrong, nothing went untoward, then it's all right. It's tar. It's only a gzeira. Okay, the next thing the Mishnah said was that if a keli, as long as a keli is not complete, it's not susceptible to b'mekabel tumah. But there's a chumrah that any keli, once you complete it, even though it was done 100% correctly and it's tar, you still should immerse in the mikveh before you actually use it. And this is only a stringency by kachim, not a stringency by truma. That's the next thing in the Mishnah. So the Gemara, the Gamrinu Ma, who actually fashioned out this keli? Ilema the Gamrinu Chava, the Tamachachim fashioned out. Why do you need mikveh again for? Lama lo tefillah. What do you need mikveh for? He's done everything done properly. He's done betara. Why should you immerse it? I mean, even a chumrah has to have some kind of logic to it. What's the logic? Ella must be the Gamrinu Amaretz. Must be that Amaretz completed. The Amaretz generally is considered tummy. So why is it merely a chumrah by kachim? Nigmirim and also nigmirim betara karlo. How can you even say that was completed betara? So what happened here? We're talking about that Tamachachim completed it. So what's the basis for this chumrah? We are worried about the saliva of an am haaretz d'nafa. We're worried that while you busy completing this keli, some am haaretz will buy and some of the spittle landed on this keli, and therefore that makes it tamei, because we say that every am haaretz is a possibility that he's a zov. And therefore it is tamei. Think about Amos, the nafal Amos. When did it fall down? Before you completed it. Allah manu. At that time it's not tamei because it's not a complete keli. No, elabas the gamre. It's while you're completing the keli, Tamachachim is standing there and making it, and he's obviously making sure that no Amoris is standing nearby. He's careful. So how did this happen? Says Gemara, I'll tell you what our concern is. He's talking about Amoretz, you weren't watching so carefully because you were still middle working with the keli. You were not near completion. Amoretz was standing there observing, and some of the spittle landed on the keli. So who cares? At that time, the keli is not susceptible to it. What we're worried about is we're worried about that while you complete the keli, the spittle is still moist, and if it's moist, then now that the keli is complete, you have sitting on the keli some spit left over residual from an amoritz. So now it seems from our Mishnah that tefillah, the chumrah is okay. Take the keli and table it. But even though we're machmir that maybe the keli is tamei, but we don't say wait till the sun sets. It seems that all we need is tefillah, chumrah. Maybe there's a spit left over from an amorit, but you don't have to wait till sunset. By truma we say that a kohen, even though you went to the mikveh, you have to wait till sunset. And for kaparim mechusik kapurim, it's not only eating kachim, not only sunset, but you have to wait till you bring your kabbanis. This keli, all you have to do is table it, and that's enough. So we're going to ask a question here. We're going to say that our Mishnah L'Chayda only follows one particular line. Masnisin de Leik Rabbalezes. So but just be kids, we need to know. We already had this before in human and so on. That when interesting Paraduma, we were very stringent of so many chumras. Remember more Sukkah there that they had these kids raised on a rock to make sure that they're the ones involved bring Paraduma. They never became tamei. And they put them on a cow that was wider than them, so they never went over any tumor while they were going. All these different stringencies he put in, which is phenomenal. However, the Tzdukim said, they read the Torah and they said that the person who involved in the paradum, and so too the kelim involved, cannot be a tvul yom. They have to be 100% tired. The Chachamim learned out that a tvul yom, as long as you went to the mikveh, tvul yom is somebody went to the mikveh by day but didn't go through a sunset. That a tvul yom is good enough for paradum. So the Chachamim went out of the way to be lenient, to demonstrate that Tzdukim have to learn like the Chachamim and not just read the Torah the way it says literally, but listen to the way Moshe Rabbeinu told us the Pshat in Torah is. So therefore they went and they were metame, the kohen who was going to serve the paraduma. They would metame all the kelim that are being used for paraduma if they're kelim that could be toiveled. Then they would toivel it. And before the sun would set, they would tell the kohen, go ahead and spray. They would tell the kohen, go ahead, use this keli. We want you to use this keli. To demonstrate the Tzdukim are wrong. But as a result of that, in everything else, they went overboard with all the chumras. Chumras have to have a reason to it, a basis to it, but they were really machmer. So that nobody should say, oh, Paradum is pretty relaxed. Look at that, they use a tvul yom. But we use a tvul yom to show the Tzdukim that they are wrong. So we have an internal argument. So Al Mishnah that says that these kelim that nigmro b'tara were machmer that they need tefillah, but they don't need her shemesh. Al Mishnah does not conform with Rabbi Elazar. What's the story? It's now we look at the Mishnah. We have this tube made out of reeds. You cut it open and turned it into a keli, into a utensil, so that you put water there for mechatas and the ashes for paradum. You put it there and use that as a keli. Now, remember, we have to make the keli tamei, then immerse it, and we're not going to wait till Erev Shemesh. Rabbi Elazar says, Yitba miyad. Rabbi Elazar says, toivel it straight away. Rabbi Elazar says, you don't have to bother being metame the kelim, because since the law is that anyway you have to be metame, he says the law is anyway you have to be, what do you call it? You have to metame the kelim. Here is all right. Why is it all right? Because Rabbi Elazar must hold that this keli is insufficient just to table. The chumra part of the chumra is to table the keli. A keli is completely betara for kachim. You want to use it for kachim now, table it, and then you have to wait for the sunset. And when paraduma, we're not going to wait for sunset. So here we're showing the tzdukim that they're wrong. That's what Rabbi Elazar says. Rabbi Yeshua says no. Yitma v'achidro. Rabbi Yeshua says first go ahead and contaminate this new keli and then table. Why? Because Rabbi Yeshua says if you don't contaminate the keli and we just use it straight away, that proves nothing. Because every brand new keli, all you have to do is immerse it. You don't have to wait for the sun to set and use it for kachim. So how are you showing the tzdukim that they're wrong? The only way the tzdukim are wrong is that Apidin it should have waited for the sun to set, but as for paradum, you don't need it. So he said, go ahead and actively contaminate this keli, then immerse it, and normally you would have to wait for the sun to set, and we're not going to. So what do we see clearly from here? That according to Rabbi Elazar, the keli normally would have to wait for sunset, so therefore just using the keli by immersing it proves it's tzdukim wrong. According to Rabbi Yeshua, all you need is tefillah. So our mission that says all you have to do is tefillah seems to follow Rabbi Yeshua, not Rabbi Elazar. That's what the Gemara is saying. Now the Gemara will explain what we just said. But we understand the chatu chaman. First of all, chat chaman. Who cut this reed? Why make it in the first place? El chat chamaret must be namaris cut it. How can behold Rabbi Yeshua yitma v'yitma? Why would Rabbi Yeshua have to say go bother be tummy if a mamaret's made it's tummy anyway, and you need to wait for Erev Shemesh. So by immersing in the mikveh, you already proved it's looking wrong. Why does he say go out and be tummy? It's already tummy. How tummy because it's already tummy. So the same answer we gave before. Cut it open. So what are we worried about? We're by the spittle of an amaretz. So the Gemara has enough language. When did it fall? Before you cut it, at that time it wasn't susceptible, it wasn't a keli, it wasn't susceptible to move. Who cares? It's not a keli. The chachcha must be talking about after you cut it open. The tamachach must allow the amaretz to stand there and observe, and while he's trying to make it tired. Mizah but he's careful. So you want to answer like before. I'm just standing there before you cut it open. So you won't even watch it because it doesn't matter to you. It wasn't a keli yet. Dilma, and we're worried. Dilma beida the chatcha while you were cutting it. Adayin lachi. We're worried that the spittle landed there, but it's still moist. And now the Chacham is cutting. He's making sure there's no amar standing next to it, but he doesn't realize there's some spittle there already. And therefore, when the keli is completed, it becomes tummy because the spit is sitting there. Now, Gemara concludes the question. Rabbi Shua holds that you don't need, according to Rabbi Shua, you don't need Herev Shemesh at all for these kalim. All you need to do is immerse it like Al Mishnah. Therefore, he says, go ahead and contaminate it so that normally you would need mikveh and sunset. And we're not going to do that for paraduma. So we demonstrated to the Sukkim how wrong they are. Behind it, that's the Heket of Sukkim. That now we learned what we used to do was metamin hoyu, that they would go out of the way to make tummy. Hakoyin hasayder is a part of the koyin. We used to burn the pot. He had right in the beginning of Yuma. The kohen who used to burn the potter, we dafka made him tamei for the day. He would go to the mikveh. Technically, he would have to wait for sunset. And for paradum, he don't. To prove that Suzukim wrong. Because we say, it says a pasuk, v'hiza hatoyer ala tamei, right? The Torah person should spread, bring on tummy. Now already talks about, says before that, it says that the only person who should be involved in creating, making the hyssop and all that is a ish Torah, is a Torah person. So I repeat again, Torah person, to tell you that even if it's only Torah somewhat, not totally Torah, is good enough. That's what we say. Therefore, even a Tful Yoim is good enough because he's considered Torah, even though it's not 100% Torah. He's Torah, but he still needs to go to wait for the sun to set. And there, because he's nothing he can do, it's just a matter of time. So he's therefore, as far as he's concerned, he's 100% Torah because he did everything that he can do. And the Sukkim don't agree with that. They say Torah means literally 100% Torah, even past. So we want to prove them wrong. They would say, they said that those who went through the sunset can use it. Okay. So the only way to understand Rabbi Elazar is that he argues with the Mishnah. Why? Because Rabbi Elazar says just use a brand new keli and immerse it and use it, and that's good enough. That proves it's looking wrong. So Rabbi Elazar holds gently a brand new keli is not enough, it's insufficient to immerse it. You have to also wait for sunset. Okay. But now we're not going to wait till sunset. Therefore, you prove it's looking wrong. You negate their opinion. But you can tell me that every time you have a brand new keli, the chumrah by kachim is merely limited to going to the mikveh, immersing in the mikveh. But you don't have to wait for the sunset. So how do you prove it's doing wrong? My keli is dukinika. What heck is it dukin? So our Mishnah does not conform with Rabbi Elazar. Amar Rav says Rav, maybe even Rabbi Elazar agrees you don't need Herev Shemesh. Maybe you don't need Herev Shemesh. If you complete a B'tara, all you need is to immerse in the mikveh and nothing more. I asked the question, so how do we prove it's looking wrong? Where's the heket? Where's the heket here to prove it's looking wrong? This is the normal din. All you have to do is immerse in the mikveh and then you use it. So he says here, we treat, when it comes to a karban chatas, so we're not talking about kachim. When it comes to we're talking about karban chatas, which remember we learned is even a level higher than kachim. When it comes to a karban chatas, we're going to treat it as if the shveferes touched a tamei sheretz. If it touched the tamei sheretz, so therefore, normally anything which touches a tamei sheretz has to wait, go to mikveh, and then wait for the sun to set. And here, you don't have to wait for sunset. This is not the normal case of completing a keli. When it comes to mechatas, we are a bit stricter, and we treat it not just, a chumrah that we're going to immerse the keli, that's enough. That's normally enough. Here, for mechatas, we're going to go a step above. We're going to be machmer and say, let's imagine this is like a tamei sheretz, as if it touched the sheretz, which means you have to immerse in the mikveh and go Herev Shemesh. So if you're telling me when it comes to chatas, we treat as if it's a tamei sheretz, so then adam, and a person, we know that a person touches a tamei sheretz. A tamei sheretz is only a rishon, and if a person touches a rishon, nothing happens to him. A rishon can only contaminate food and drink. So a person can only become tamei from an avhatum, touching either a person that touched a corpse, or touch a sheretz, zav, a nida, that's it. But if he touches a rishon tumah, nothing happens to the person. So the question is, Aloma Tanya, so you're telling me that this keli is treated like it's a tamei sheretz. Aloma Tanya, why we learn Choitcha umadbila. Why did we learn that you cut it open and let's say you toivel the keli ha choitcha, that person who cuts it, and hamadbila, the person who toivel it, ton tefillah. The person who did it, he himself requires tefillah. The one who completed the keli. Now, why? If you're telling me that this for mechatas we treat it merely like a tamei sheretz, so why would the person who dealt with it have to go to the mikveh? A tamei sheretz, if it's food, cannot, or keli cannot be. It's only a rishon, and a rishon cannot contaminate a person. You're right. Gemara says we're going to go up a notch. Vela, when we mechatas this shveferes hanoid, we treat it asur ketami meis. We go a step higher than that. It's as if somebody touched a mace. Now, tummy mace is an avatuma. Somebody touches a mace is an avatuma. And avatuma can be metami a person. That's why the person doing it, who's completing this tube, has to go ahead and go to the mikveh. So, if we treat it like a tummy mace, what do we know about a tummy mace? You have to be sprayed and you have to separate, for 7 days, the third day and the 7th day. So why is it says the person who made it always has to go to the mikveh? It should also be 7 days. That the person who touched it should not only have to go to a mikveh and wait for sunset, but the person should also have to wait 7 days, get sprinkled to the paradum itself. A long time we learned the one who does it, who cuts it, and toivel it, all he needs is ton tefillah doesn't need to sprinkle it the 3rd and 7th day. Why not? Most of you right. Ella. We treat it as if it's a tummy mace on its 7th day. So therefore, it's the last day already, and as if you sprinkled already. So therefore, you don't have to do any more sprinkling, or you just go to mikveh. But you're a tummy mace. You're still a tummy mace till the very end of the 7th day. Therefore, if this keli is treated like a tummy mace, and the person who touches it he becomes like the 7th day tummy, and therefore it doesn't go any further. Says the Gemara. Tanya, we learned, even though we say that we make chumrah by para, but we don't make up new ideas that never existed before. We don't make something that we don't find anywhere else. Now, if you're going to say that kelim that are completed betara, we're going to treat the keli as if it touched a dead body. Where do you find such a precedent? They never came up with new ideas that there's no precedent for. Where do you find a precedent that a keli becomes like a tummy mace? Omar Abaye said, what that means over there is that we don't create new things. It's a concept that never happens. For example, we don't say we know that if a Zav sits on a seat, then everything that carries his weight becomes tummy like it, but only if it's a dedicated seat. But if it's let's say not normal seat, we would say, for example, amoid, we would say, using an expression, stand up so we can use this item you're sitting on for what its real purpose is. Then it's not really a seat and doesn't become tummy. And we cannot then make up this din that this should become tummy like a real seat when it isn't. Every time we learn, we would have thought kafah saw. You turn over, let's say, a basket or something that is meant to carry a saw of wheat. You turn it over and use it as a seed. The yashav, you sat on it, or tirke, let's say half a saw, which is 2 cup. The yashav, and you sat on it. You hate tummy. I would have think they're supposed to be mach, but you come tummy. The hayeshiv ala kli. It says if you sit on a keli, you have to sit on something that is a keli, a kli. And you sat on it, it becomes tummy. So we darshan only this is an exception. I might stand up and that's what we mean. The concept of telling is not a chiddush, so therefore we have the right to say that this. No, but Rabbi Lezer really go back to what we said. Rabbi Lezer really holds that even a keli that was kinigma malacha were very, very machmid. That look, if you use it for kachim, go to mikveh, will agree that you don't have to wait for the sun to set. But when it comes to paraduma, they were so strict. We treat the keli as if it's the 7th day, as if it's the 7th day of a tummy mace. And therefore, it's able to be matame a person, and the person who becomes tamei, has to just the keli itself doesn't need more than the last. It's as if the keli on the 7th day. So the keli instead after it's sprinkling. So therefore, all you have to do is wait for to get tired, and then immerse it, and then wait for sunset when it comes to paraduma. And that's what our brother says. You don't have to bother matame the keli anyway. You have to wait for sunset, and by paraduma we're not going to. So therefore, that's how we negate the opinion of the dukim. And the Mishnah says, don't create new concepts. It's not a new concept, what the Mishnah there meant was, don't create a new concept, a chair that's not a chair, and treat it like a chair. That's called a new concept. Okay, that finishes that. The next part of the Mishnah says is that a keli's mitzvah, when it comes to kachim, let's say you have 10 loaves of bread. By truma, if you have 10 loaves of bread, then you touch one of them, touch one of them. That loaf is, let's say, a rishon, touches the next loaf, that becomes a sheni. By truma, he goes one more, he touches the next loaf, becomes a shlishi, and then nothing beyond that. But when it comes to kachim, hakeli mitzaref, everything in that keli is combined. So if you touch one loaf, that 10 loaves in total, they all take on the same status as the original loaf. The keli turns everything into one unit. So how do you know that? Hakeli mitzaref, when it comes to kachim, is considered one, not for truma. So how do you know that? It says, the Amakro, it says in Pasik, kaf achas asorazov. You have one spoon. There's the value. This is why the Nasim, what they brought the karbonis. So it says that they have one spoon, 10 zov malay of titus. What kaf is a single already. So why does it say kaf achas? It's redundant. What does it come to teach you? Hakosav also chomash bikaf achas. It comes to teach you that everything that's inside the contents of the spoon is also considered one. That's how you learn. So it sounds like it's from the Torah. Moshe Rav Kana asked a question. You're telling me it's from the Torah. It seems clearly from the following that it's merely midrabanan. How do I say that? It says Hoisif Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva added. It says it that Rabbi Shimon testified that the ashes of chatas, the ashes of a korban chatas, if a talmudic person touch part of it, the entire contents become tummy. And we don't say you only touch part of it, then there's ash. So every piece of ash is something else into this. So the other side you can use. No, the entire ash becomes tummy, is rendered tummy. So Rabbi Kiva adds that. Not only when it comes to mechatas, he also adds kachim. Rabbi Kiva added on hasaylis, flour, v'haktoides, and the incense, v'halavoin, and the frankincense they use by the lechem aponim, and b'hacholim and kol. Now, even though the lavoina, the frankincense, or even though the kol is not really food, we say that, and only food can be mekabel tumah. We say there's a rule that chibas hakodesh, the fact that it now took on such an important level because it's for kachim, it becomes chashav like food, and therefore it can become tummy. And also, you don't have to prepare kachim to become wet in order to mekabel tumah. The chibas hakodesh is machsharton, prepares them all for tumah. Now he says here, I'm going to add kachim to chatos. She'im nogat full yom b'miktzasa. If it's full yom, we didn't wait for the sunset. Who's a sheni, and by kachim we go to revi. So if a tulyam touches it, they become tamei. If a tulyam touches b'miktzasa, it touches part of it. Pasal is kulai. He says everything, all the contents become tamei, all the frankincense, because the keli combines everything in the keli, makes it one. Now we know definitely Rabbi Kiva is talking with the Rabbanon, because when it comes to mechatas, that chumrah is definitely with the Rabbanon. The pasuk of kaf achas is talking about kachim. It's not talking about paradum. So we cannot draw an inference from that. So therefore, it must be only a chumrah with the Rabbanon. That by mechatas also the keli combines everything. Rabbi Kiva is adding to that, which means he's saying that by kachim also it's only the Rabbanon. Not like Rav Chanan who said Mitzvah Torah. But the Rabbanon, since the whole thing is Rabbanon by kachim as well, how do I know that? Because it starts off, hey, Yid Rav Shimon said Alev Chatas. He starts off talking about the ashes of Karma Chatas, which definitely the pasuk is not talking about that the spoon or the keli combines all of its contents, makes it like one unit. You said if a tummy touches part of it. Tim is cool, it all becomes tummy. Then it says Hoisiv Rabbi Kiva. He was adding furthermore. No, to that mechata, that chum mechata, I'm going to ask more chumras kachim. So we see kachim on Rabbanan. Rabbi Kiva, so we see clothes made Rabbanan, a kasha of chanin, over the shlagsh kapara. Loi nitzchana. We need it. Ella lushiyari mincha the araisa. We need this Eidus Rabbi Kiva, that it's Rabbanan, is not talking about normal kabbanis. Normal kachim is like Rabbi Chanan said, it's matayda. The kelis makabah them all together. What we're talking about is the leftover of a korban mincha, the flour left over a korban mincha. The rice, because from the Torah perspective, like Rabbi Chanan learns, everything that's inside the spoon, everything that's inside the keli, combines to one unit. Only tzarich lekeli, that which is necessary, that which requires a keli. That was the korban itself. Ha-keli mitzarfer, the keli combines and makes it one unit. But you ain't tzarel keli, the leftover of the mincha that's not really part of the carbon anymore. Ain't keli mitzarfer. Therefore, since you don't need the keli doesn't have the capacity to mitzarfer. Came along, Rabbi Kiva said, but that left over. Also, Rabbanan, the Gazud. Rabbanan said, nevertheless, it becomes tamei even because why? Because it's similar to the part of the mincha that's a carbon, so we're going to be machmir. That's what Rabbi Kiva is talking about. The avgav the ancient kli mitzarfer, even though it doesn't require the keli mitzarfer. Says he went, okay, Teinach Seilis, you explained the case of flour, why it's only Rabbanan. Rabbi Kiva is talking about an unusual case, talking about the leftovers of milk. Fine. When it comes to Titus, when it comes to Levain, there's no leftovers. And over there, Rabbi Kiva says that only with Rabbanan they all combine. So what's going on over here? Because remember, this Kaf Achas Asar Azov is talking about the Titus. And there is talking about that the Keli combines it because they're all necessary for the Keli. So, Amar Nachman says again, according to Rab Chanan, he'll answer that. Amar Rab Huda, keep going. You know what Rab Kiva is talking about? He's talking about a case. It wasn't a spoon. It wasn't. In order for a keli to makabel tumah, it has to have a cavity. It has to have a receptacle. Rab Kiva is talking about a case where it's a flat. He gathered together the potatoes and the flour al gabe kartabla on let's say on a piece of leather. It was cooked. Everything else on a piece of leather. The rice and has no, it's flat. Is the rice the Torah? When does the Torah consider a keli that it combines everything? Yes, like teich if it has a receptacle mitzvah, it combines everything. Ein like teich if it does not have it, ein mitzvah, it does not combine. But also Rabbanan came on Rabbanan, the tiknu, and they made a takana. This is what Rabbi Kiva was talking about with the Rabbanan, a unique case. The afagav the ein like teich, even though in the flats, which Mahatayla is not a problem, won't combine. Even though if it was a spoon, it would combine, but this is flat. It's mitzvah. The Rabbanan it says he add. Says the Gemara, Pliga the Rab Chanan who says that this is Mahatayla, argue the Chiba Rabba. Why? Because Rabbi Kiva from the testimony of Rabbi Kiva. Nishnis Mishnah Zu. From the testimony of Rabbi Kiva, we can learn this Mishnah. That what? That our Mishnah is based on the testimony of Rabbi Kiva, which means that he understood. Rabbi Kiva is saying to Rabban, and our Mishnah that says that the Keli combines all together is based on Rabbi Akiva. In other words, our Mishnah holds that the whole thing is the Rabban. Not like Rabbi Chanan that learns that from the Kafachas Sarazah we learn that's Mahatayra that combines. And Rabbi Kiva is talking about a unique case, and our Mishnah is talking about Mahatayra. Comes along, and Rabbi Kiva says, no, that our Mishnah is also talking about Midrash Rabbanan, because there is no Mahatayra. The pasuk that's only in a smachta. And that's the argument. Okay.